Are we? We're live now? Good, great. Okay, so I think we're live now. So hi everybody. We've just gone live just 4 or 5 minutes before we start, just so we can say hello. You can say hello to each other. Say hello to us if you like, and you can say hello in the chat box. So my name's Subhadramati, and I'm sitting here in the large shrine room at the London Buddhist Centre. And yeah, really, really great to welcome you here. So Sarah's here and says hi. Who's Sarah? Where's Sarah from? London Fields. Sarah from London Fields. Great. Hi, Sarah. Someone from Bow. Particularly warm welcome if you're joining us for the first time this evening. Do let us know if you're here for the first time. I always really like it when people are here for the very first time. So don't be shy. Introduce yourself in the chat box.
Veronica's here from Rochford.
Hi, Veronica.
And Lindsay's here from Cambridge.
Oh, hi, Lindsay. From Cambridge. Cambridgeshire. Okay. Good. Great. Oh, that's nice, my Tribanda. Always looking in.
Yeah, we've got Alan from Cambridge Heath.
Great, Alan.
Robert from Elephant and Castle.
Robert. Hi, Robert.
Okay, and Dorothy says she's so appreciating this series.
And
she's from Leiden and St. Anne's.
Okay, great, Dorothy. Yes, so yes, this is part of a series. So we started on Monday with this course, 7 Steps to Enlightenment. So if you're just joining us for the first time tonight, if you've missed a few, you can watch them all and catch up. And they're great, actually. I was watching Jnana Vachas from last night. I was watching Maitreya Bandha's. Really, really enjoying this series. And each evening's been building on the previous evenings, but they should stand alone as well. So even if you are joining us for the first time, that'll be fine. Good. So how many people have we got with us? 45 people. That's nice. Good. Oh, great. Yes, our regulars from Trieste and New York. That's marvellous. Yeah. It's just, we've been saying it again and again, just the benefit of live streaming is that we're able to connect with so many people from all around the world. We're sad, of course, that we've had to close the doors of the Buddhist Centre, but we've had this sort of unexpected bonus, really, of connecting with so many people.
Val says hi, Subhadramati.
Okay, hi, Val. Good, hi, Val. Good. So yeah, do get yourself comfortable. We'll be starting in a minute, so not too late to grab yourself a cup of tea. We'll be having a tea break this evening, but
Stephen says it's his first time.
Oh, hi, Stephen. I'm delighted that you're here for the first time. Very, very warm welcome to you.
Yes, I will pass the centre recently.
Okay, good. And maybe you saw our little blackboard outside inviting you along. That's really good. Well, as I was saying, this is part of a course, 7 Steps to Enlightenment. But if you're here for the first time, you can just catch up on the course on Catch Up. It's all recorded on YouTube. Good. So I think we're nearly at 7. Good. So my clock says we've just hit 7 o'clock. So we'll sort of officially start now. So yeah, really, really warm welcome to everyone, wherever you are, in your houses, in your flats, in your bedrooms, in your living rooms. So my name's Subhadramati, and I'm sitting here in the large shrine room at the London Buddhist Centre and welcoming you to the London Buddhist Centre online. Really good to have you here. And here in the shrine room with me are Kusla, Sarah and Polly. So maybe Kusla, Sarah and Polly could just come and say hello. This is our team for this evening. So they're just coming around to the camera. So This is Polly, and this is Kusla Sara. Good, thank you. And we all live together here at the Buddhist Centre, actually. We're part of a 6-person community. This is half our community come to join you this evening, and all of us live at the London Buddhist Centre. So that's quite handy and means that we can just keep on teaching from the Buddhist Centre even during the lockdown. So I'll just say a little bit by way of introduction on the format of the class. So this is day 5 of our 7 Steps to Enlightenment course. We started on Monday morning with morning meditation. We've had that every morning. And then in the evenings, we've been exploring the story of the Buddha. And I'll say a bit more about how we're doing that in a moment and why we're doing it. So this is day 5. So there'll be tomorrow. There'll be tomorrow evening. We'll be teaching as well, and then Sunday, the sort of grand finale of the course. We're celebrating Buddha Day with a whole day retreat. So you can see the program below, and you can just come to as much of that as you can. There'll be meditation, teaching, chance to talk about your meditation in small groups with experienced meditators. There will be talks, personal talks. In fact, Polly's given one of the talks who just said hello. And there will be Buddhist ritual and some other festive things. So do have a look at the program for Buddha Day, that whole day retreat on Sunday. And this evening is part of that. And as I've said a couple of times already, but just in case people have joined late, if you've missed any parts of this course, you can just watch them on the catch up on YouTube. And they're worth watching. Very good teaching from Maitreya Bandit and Jnanavacha this week, as ever. So the format of this evening is from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and with a tea break in the middle. So I'll talk for a bit, and then we'll meditate for a bit. And even if you're quite new to meditation, don't worry, because I'll be leading us through that meditation. Then we'll have a tea break. Sorry, we won't be able to provide you with tea as usual. Usually we always have tea and biscuits here at the Buddhist Centre. So you have to get your own tea and biscuits, and we'll do that here. And then in the second half of the class, I'll say I'll do a little bit more teaching of the story of the life of the Buddha. And then there'll be a chance for you to join in. So in a way, that's the highlight of these evenings for me. You can join in with any questions you've got, and anything you want to ask to have a bit more expounded, any thoughts on what I've been saying, and you'll be able to do all that in the chat box. Kusla Sara will be able to relay that to me, and I'll do my best to respond. And then we'll finish with a meditation. So basically a mixture of me talking, you talking, as it were, and meditation. And that'll take us up to 9 o'clock. So good. So hope that all sounds good to you. So what we've been doing in these evenings is we've been following the journey of the Buddha becoming the Buddha. So the Buddha wasn't born a Buddha. The Buddha was born, an ordinary human being, and through his own efforts realized this state, for want of a better word, we call enlightenment. And we've been following this journey and seeing what it's got to say to us. And last night's talk was from Jnanavacha, and last night's talk was, what enlightenment really is. What is enlightenment? So as I say, that's well worth listening to. And one of the things Jnanavacha said quite rightly is, in fact, enlightenment is impossible to talk about for us. Not just because we're not enlightened. So Jnanavacha was making that clear. He's not enlightened. I was thinking, well, if he's not enlightened, I'm certainly not enlightened. It's not just because we're not enlightened that we can't talk about it. It's because it actually can't be put into words and concepts. So it's impossible to talk about. It's sort of beyond our imaginings. It's beyond what we can imagine. It's beyond what we can even imagine. We can imagine, if you see what I mean. That's why, in fact, trying to communicate it through story is much better, actually, because at least through story, through myth and through symbol, we can get a bit more of a glimpse of enlightenment. Even though we can't really talk about it in all its fullness, there's a couple of important things that we can say about it. So one thing that's really important that we can say about it is enlightenment is natural, is extraordinary, but at the same time it's natural. In other words, it's not supernatural. It's something that grows out of life itself. It's in line with life. And because it's natural and in line with life, it's there in potential for every single human being, actually, but let's say every single human being. So it's possible for all, whatever it is, and we can't say what it is, but whatever it is, it's possible for all of us. In a way, that's the great teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha, in a way, sort of showed us that by dint of him becoming enlightenment. He was born as a human being. Through his efforts, through his striving, through this great spiritual quest, he became enlightened, and that sort of opened the gates for all of us. That showed that there's something that is humanly possible for any of us who embark on that quest as well. So there are two really, really important things. Well, three really important things. One, it's impossible to talk about because it goes beyond the rational mind. Two, it is natural, it's not supernatural. And three, that it's possible for all of us. It's possible for all of us. So that's sort of by way of recap, but it's in a way, it's quite good just to remind ourselves of that again and again. Quite good for me, even though I've been trying to practice Buddhism, the Dharma, for many, many years now. I don't know, over 30 years now. It's still very important for me to remind myself of those three things. What next? So the other really important thing that Jnanavacha said last night, and which I'm going to try and explore more this evening, is that the experience of enlightenment goes beyond enlightenment. In other words, everything doesn't just stop at enlightenment. Something continues to unfold after that. And I'm going to try and give a flavour of that this evening. So before I say more about that directly, I want to just tell you about my bedtime reading. So for the last week or two, I've been reading at bedtime a novel by Julian Barnes. Some of you may have read it. He is quite a favourite of mine. And the novel's called, which I can't remember the exact title. I think it's called A Short History of the World in 10.5 chapters, or A History of the World in 10.5 chapters. Anyway, I just finished that, and I just got to the last chapter, or half chapter, the other night, and it was so good I wanted to read it again. And so in this last chapter, it's told in the first person of somebody who you quite soon realize has died and is in heaven, or is in a sort of heaven. And what heaven consists of for this character is basically everything you've ever wanted and as much of it as you wanted. So he quite quickly, he sort of wakes up and sort of realizes that all his wishes are coming true. the very first thing he does is have breakfast, and it's the best breakfast he ever has. And then it's so good, he decides to have his breakfast for lunch as well. So he has it again for lunch, and he has it again for dinner. And he just keeps having breakfast every day for several thousand years, it sounds like, since he's in infinite time. And then he realizes, well, why stop at breakfast? He can have, as much sex as he wants with whoever he wants, and so on. So basically, heaven consists in the story of having whatever you want, as much as you want. Oh yeah, the other funny thing about this heaven is even God's optional. If you want your heaven to contain God, you can have that. If you don't want your heaven to contain God, that's fine as well. So even God's optional in this heaven. In other words, heaven consists of everything you want. Your wishes all, just are granted. And one of the things the character, I can't remember if he takes this up or if he's already been a golfer. Anyway, he wants to play golf, and he's on this. I mean, I don't really know anything about golf, and I'm afraid I've never been interested, so apologies to golfers, but he finds himself on the best golf course that ever is imaginable. It's got all the best bits of every golf course, the best bits of St. Andrews and the best bits of, I don't actually know any other golf courses, but wherever they are, all the best bits are in this golf course. And so every afternoon he plays golf, and he starts getting better at it. So he starts off and he does it. And again, my knowledge is a bit hazy here about golf, but 60 strokes, if that's what you call it, 60 hits of the ball when he goes around the course. And then he keeps on doing it. And of course he gets better. So that 60 goes down to 50, and then it starts getting down to 40. And then he says to, his kind of mate who's in, his sort of personal, his PA in heaven. He says, oh, this is great. He said, my golf's improving no end. And then for the first time, he stops and thinks, he said, hang on, what have I just said? My golf's improving no end. Well, yeah, so what does that means? It's going to keep getting better. But hang on a minute. It can't keep getting better. Sooner or later, I'm going to do it in 18. I think that's the number of holes there are on a golf course. I'm 18. And that's just, you can't do it in 17. So then what am I going to do? And so for the first time in heaven, he has this, what sounds a funny thing to say, a bit of an existential thing, what's going to happen then? I won't be able to, what I want is to get better and better at golf, but there'll come a time where I can't get better because you can't do it in better than 18. So this changes everything for him. This changes everything for him. He just, he kind of thinks, well, what's going to happen then? And the assistant sort of saying, oh, never mind, just take up tennis or something. He's going, no, but that's not the point. And then he says, look, what happens to people in heaven? When they realize that kind of getting everything you want in a funny way is just as bad as not getting anything you want. And the assistant says, well, there is the choice of sort of dying again. And you get the sense that if you die again, there's no heaven after this. That's just it. And he says, do many people take up that option? She says, well, yeah. And he says, well, what percentage of people take up that option? She says, 100%. So 100% take up the option to die again. So isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? And I thought, well, there you've got a sort of perfect little cartoon, really, of eternalism and nihilism. Yeah. So you've got, first of all, you've got heaven as eternalism. This realm is eternal. You get everything you want, as much as you want. You don't even need to have God there if you don't want God there. And that can just go on forever. It's going to go on forever. But then somehow that doesn't work. And then you get the choice of, that's it. You can just die again, and there's nothing after that. And then that's nihilism. So so I thought, oh, that's great, great little cartoon, really. Those extremes, like Buddhism says, that isn't the only choices. In the story that's presented as that's the only choices, yeah? You've got this heaven or you've got this nothing. So Buddhism says, no, there's something else, yeah? There's something else that's not eternalism, it's not nihilism. Sometimes it's called the middle way, but it's a bit problematic, that term, because saying it's the middle way can sound like it's just some sort of halfway house between the two. And actually, it's something far over and above those two extremes. The vision that Buddhism gives us is far more than that. It's not just a middle point. It's something, if eternalism's here and nihilism's here, the middle way is right up, over and above either extreme. And so rather than going into a sort of whole discourse about what the middle way might be, maybe to save myself from having to try, a simple way of saying this is that enlightenment, in a certain sense, isn't the end point. Yeah, in a certain sense, isn't the end point. So enlightenment, as depicted by the Buddha of the shrine, on the shrine, an enlightened being, that isn't the end. In one way, it is the end. So enlightenment means the end forever of craving, of kind of hankering after stuff. It means the end of that forever. There'll be no more, there's no more hankering. It's a state of complete contentment. And it's the end of ill will and hatred. Enlightenment, there'll be no more ill will or hatred or possibility of that. And most importantly, there'll be no more delusion, no more ignorances. So it is the end of those three kind of root poisons, really: greed, hatred, and delusion. So it is the end in that sense, but it's not the end in the sense it's a full stop. My own teacher, Bhante Sangharaj, said it's more like it's just the furthest point on the horizon that we can see from our point of view. Yeah, so it's just something keeps unfolding. There's something that keeps unfolding. And we need that. As human beings, I think we need to have a sense of there's something more to grow into, or else we'd just be like that fictional man on his golf. I think poets understand this very well. I was going to read you a couple of bits from a couple of poems, but I left my book on the other side of the room. But maybe because Sarah could just get my book from the other side of the room, because I think poets poets know this well, that life needs to point to more than life. So thank you, Kusla Sarah. Very nice to have someone on hand. So here's one poet, a Scottish poet, Norman McCaig, describing a July evening. And here it goes. So something has been completed that everything is part of. Something that will go on being completed forever. So that's lovely, isn't it? Something that will go on being completed forever. So completion isn't an end point. For something to be complete, paradoxically, it needs more completion. I hope that makes sense. Shame not to have. If you were really here, I'd be asking you to nod your head or shake your head, because that's quite mysterious. And then the Swedish poet, Thomas Tranströmer, talking about being human, says, don't be ashamed to be a human being. Be proud. Inside you, one vault after another opens endlessly. You will never be complete, and that's as it should be. So again, you've got something similar applied to us now. Inside you, one vault after another opens endlessly. You'll never be complete, and that's as it should be. So again, for something to be perfect, it sort of paradoxically has to be imperfect. There has to be a possibility of more unfolding, even for an enlightened being, even enlightenment. Yeah. And in the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, this is communicated very dramatically. It's communicated in a drama. So what we have is we have the Buddha sitting under what becomes known as the Bodhi tree. We've already heard that he's made this great vow to sit on this spot and not move until enlightenment is realized. And he has realized enlightenment. Enlightenment has dawned. And he sits there for a long, long time. And he's, well, I guess something like absorbing the experience. I mean, we haven't really got words for it. It sounds a bit banal, that, doesn't it? Like absorbing the experience when we're talking about the Buddha. But in any case, he sits there for a long time. Something huge has happened. Sort of universe shaking's happened. And that's just sort of rippling through the Buddha and just becoming more and more absorbed. And then we're told something else happens, that this kind of flicker of thought passes through his mind, and it goes something like, this enlightenment experience is very deep and very subtle. Human beings are consumed by greed and craving. If I was to try and explain this enlightenment to them, they wouldn't understand. It would be troublesome to me, and they wouldn't understand. So it would be better to just stay here, just enjoying the bliss of enlightenment itself by myself. So we're told that flickered through the Buddha's mind. And at that moment, a great god appeared called Brahma Sahampati. And, we begged the Buddha, said, please don't refuse to teach. There are some beings with little dust on their eyes, and some will understand. So Brahma Sahampati begs the Buddha to teach. It's like the universe begs the Buddha to teach. And at that moment, the Buddha sees a vision. And he sees that the whole universe is like a vast lotus pond. And in that pond, there are many, many lotuses, and some are still buried down deep into the mud. And some have risen partway out of the mud and are just still tightly closed, but they've risen out of the mud. Some are half open, and a few are fully open lotuses. And this is his vision of humanity. And that is, when he has that vision, he knows he will teach. And beautiful, beautiful vision, isn't it? This image of lotuses and this image of growth. And, if you were to try and put this vision into words, you could say something like, it's affirming that the meaning and purpose of life is growth. Yeah, so it affirms human growth. It affirms that's the meaning and purpose of life. And the Buddha saw that all human beings have that potential. And even though some are right down in the mud still, all human beings have that potential. And what's more, he realized that having that potential, they would never be fully satisfied until that potential was fulfilled. which again is beautiful, isn't it? That's the nature of a lotus bud or a lotus to become a fully open lotus. It's the nature of human beings, of all beings, to fully realize their potential. And that's what Buddhahood means. It means the fully realized potential of a human being. And seeing that, he had to help. And when you see something like that, you have to help. It's sort of not a choice anymore. It's not that then he kind of thinks, oh, shall I, shan't I? He has to help. And that's what we call the Buddha's compassion. It's that sort of impulse of the Buddha, that seeing that that's the only thing that will make human beings happy and that they've got and fulfilled and that they've got that potential. There's no choice anymore. It's the nature of a Buddha to help that growth of other beings. That's just nature, just second nature. He can't but help. Jnanavaccha last night was talking about the wisdom of the Buddha. And that this wisdom of the Buddha is the wisdom that sees that actually we're not as separate as we believe. Common sense, if you like, tells us there's a real me in here and everybody else out there. That's the common sense view, but actually at Enlightenment, that view is overturned. And one sees the non-separateness and also sees that kind of creation of separateness was the cause of all our suffering all along. So that's what the wisdom of the Buddha sees, sort of overturns, actually, turns about. The compassion of the Buddha is the reflex of that. It's the sort of affective aspect of that. It's that in action. And the most helpful way I found so far of thinking about this is, again, from my own teacher, Bhante Sankaracharya. And he says, imagine someone that you really love, and they ask you to do something. And, well, you know what it's like. If somebody you really love asks you to do something, you just want to do it. You're glad that they asked you. It's a delight to do it. It's a sort of joy to do that. And then what Bhante said is, he said, so given that, whose will is it? And that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because you can't say it's the other person's will entirely, because you've willingly responded. You want to do that thing. You can't say it's your will entirely, because it's been sparked off by the person you love asking you to do the thing. And what Bhante says, he says it's a blending of wills. He says what happens in that kind of experience is a blending of wills. It's a bit like, as well, I often think, like when you choose or when you find the absolute right birthday present for someone, you're just so happy, you know they're going to love it. And your happiness kind of consists in knowing that they will be happy. And again, you couldn't say, well, whose happiness is it anymore? Is it yours or theirs? It's that kind of blending again. So we do have a taste of that, don't we, in our ordinary experience? Well, a Buddha would feel that about everyone all the time. And it wouldn't just be a birthday present, it would be enlightenment itself. The Buddha's love is for everyone all the time. The Buddha's will, if you like, is blended with the will of all beings, and their deepest wish. And the deepest wish of all beings is to fulfill their highest potential. That's what life wants to do. One way of saying it would be that the Buddha's love wants to lift us to that highest potential. Or another way, slightly more subtle, is that, Well, life itself wants us to realize our fullest potential. And to the extent that, to the extent that one's enlightened, we are cooperating with that. Sometimes in my sort of longest and deepest retreats, I felt, oh, that's all I've got to do is cooperate with that will to enlightenment, that will to complete fulfillment that is there in all life, yeah? And that's what we call the compassion of the Buddha. So I hope that stimulated some questions, and if it has, don't forget them. But what we're going to do now is we won't do questions yet. We're going to meditate now, and then we'll have a little tea break, and then we'll come back, and I'll say just a tiny bit more, and then there'll be a chance for some discussion. So let's set ourselves up for meditation. We're going to dim the lights here. And we're going to do a meditation on loving kindness. You might be familiar with this as the Metta Bhavana. But if you don't know that practice, that's fine, because I'm going to lead you in it. So try and get yourself as comfortable as you can, but also as upright as you can. So a kitchen chair is quite good if you're at home. It's good to have your feet flat on the floor. Or you might even have some meditation cushions at home or something a bit like them, and you can sit there on them. And maybe if you've got any bright lights, you could just turn them down. You could dim your computer screen light. The main thing is to be comfortable, but at the same time be upright. A sort of relaxed alertness in the posture. So now we just close our eyes. The first thing we're going to do is just tune in to our bodies. Perhaps taking a deeper breath or two. And then just really connecting with the contact of our bodies with whatever we're sitting on, the chair or the sofa or meditation cushions. And really notice if there's any tendency to be slightly holding ourselves off of the cushions or chair. I always notice that if I've been speaking like this, I'm kind of, when I look at it, when I tune into it, I'm kind of a bit braced, a bit kind of risen up off the cushions with the sort of slight excitement of speaking. So then I just have to try and get a sense of more and more of my weight sinking down into the cushions or chair and into the floor. So we're allowing the base of our posture to settle. And sort of stabilize. Sense of becoming heavier on the floor. We've all been making bread, haven't we? So maybe we could think of the base of our posture, a bit like when you put your lump of dough on the tray and then it just starts to relax and spread. And the rest of your torso rising up, your spine rising up in its own natural curves. Head just poised. And see if you can soften your face a little bit more. And see if you can soften your hands a little bit more. See if you can soften your belly a little bit more. Noticing that your body is breathing. Just letting each breath come to you. And now just tuning in to the heart center. So not so much your physical heart. It's that area in the center of your chest. It's your emotional center. So just noticing any sensations there. Does the heart center feel tight or open? Does it feel tender? Or does it feel a bit nothingy? We're just noticing, not judging at all. And even if it does feel nothing much, just notice what nothing much feels like. And now bringing to mind something that's moved you recently. Perhaps something you've seen. Perhaps you've witnessed someone being kind or brave. Perhaps something you've read about. Perhaps something beautiful in nature has moved you. Bring the memory of that to mind and just dwelling with that. And noticing the effect of that, especially the effect on the heart center. Your mind goes away, just coming back to the heart center. And just bringing that memory back, a memory of something that's moved you. And now bring to mind a good friend. Just try to get as clear a sense of them or image of them as you can. And just notice the effect of bringing your friend to mind, especially the effect in your heart. At the same time, we're not trying to make anything happen, trying to force anything. Just notice any effect. And if there doesn't seem to be one, that's fine as well. Just keep coming back to the image or sense of your friend. And now just wishing your friend well. May they be happy and may they be fulfilled. Your mind goes away, just coming back to your heart center. To your friend and to wishing them well. Keep softening your face. Now we're going to start extending this well-wishing. So, extending this well-wishing, everyone you live with, if you live with others, your neighbors, and then just more and more people you love and care for. people you don't know, and even people you don't like. Connecting with the fact that they all want to be fulfilled, all want to fulfill their potential. And putting yourself behind that wish. May all beings be well. And then finally, for the last few moments, still sitting still with our eyes closed, just relaxing these well-wishing efforts we're making. And just sitting for a few moments, not particularly trying to do anything, just sitting. Aware of the body, aware of the breath. Aware of the continuum of sound around about. Not straining after sound and not trying to push it away either. Letting it be part of awareness. And then when you're ready, in your own time, opening your eyes, bringing the meditation to a close. Okay, so very good, everyone. So very nice to be all meditating together, all over. Don't know how many of us were meditating there together? About 150 of us meditating together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have tea. So you can go and get yourself some tea. We're going to get ourselves some tea. So we just leave the camera looking at the Buddha on the shrine, and we'll get some tea, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. So we'll be back at 8:05 for just to hear a bit more about the Buddha. And then, of course, it's a chance for you to ask questions, and then we'll finish with a final meditation, taking us up to 9:00. So see you after tea. Yeah, good. Okay, good. So welcome back after tea, everyone. So yeah, hope you had a nice cup of tea. I did. So yes, so usually at the London Buddhist Centre, at the tea break, we always have the adverts. So we're going to have the advert after tea tonight. And actually, the advert's for something really, really good. So we're actually doing a home retreat from the Buddhist Centre the week after next. So it's going to start on the evening of Sunday the 17th and run right through to the 24th. And by the sort of wonders of modern science, we're going to create a virtual retreat that's as near to an actual retreat as we can. So we're going to have meditation, teaching on meditation, virtual rooms where you can just hang out with each other, and lots of Dharma input. It's completely free, as this event is. But yeah, you do need to sign up so we can invite you to the various groups and so on. So I think Polly's just going to put the link, yes, they're nodding, where to sign up for that retreat. So 17th to the 24th. If you can take the week off work, or if you're not working, that's the best of all. But if you've got to go to work, that's fine as well. You can just tune into as much as you can. But if you're able to take the week off, then you'd be able to fully immerse yourself in this week's retreat. And then, yeah, also just once again to remind you about our Buddha Day festival on Sunday. That's a whole day festival from the morning right through into the evening. We'll be ending with a Buddhist ritual at 7:30 in the evening. And yeah, be lovely to see you there, as it were. So do come along to that as well. And again, if you just sign up for this event, for 7 Steps to Enlightenment, to be able to come to that Buddha Day. Okay, and yeah, just sign up to our YouTube, of course, and then you'll keep getting notifications of everything that we're doing here. What we're trying to do is just keep increasing our offering as time goes on. So good. Okay, so just want to say one more thing about the Enlightenment experience before we go into questions. So I do hope you are thinking of some questions for me. So earlier on in the first half, I was talking about there has to be something more. Even enlightenment can't be a sort of end point. If it was an end point, it paradoxically wouldn't be enlightenment. For enlightenment to be enlightenment, there has to be a continual unfolding. My own teacher, Bhante Sangharajta, has said that enlightenment is a state of continual creativity, which I think is really beautiful way of putting it. And there's always new expressions of the enlightened mind. There is an end in one sense, in that the enlightened mind can never again fall into greed, hatred, and delusion. They are completely overcome once and for all. So there's an ending in one sense, but it isn't an ending in the sort of unfolding of expression of subtlety even. So just as there needs to be something more for any human life, even an enlightened human life, there also needs to be something to look up to. In a way, it's the same thing. One's a personification of the other. So we need to feel there's a sense of more, and we need to have people that exemplify that more for us, that we can look up to, that give us an ideal to grow into. And amazingly enough, that is also true for an enlightened being. And again, we have this very dramatically told in the story of the Enlightenment, that just as the Buddha is realizing the compassionate aspect of the Enlightenment experience, he's also, that question arises, which is something like, who can I revere? Who can I revere? And then he says this amazing thing. He says, if there's no one to revere, then that is going to be painful. If there's no one to revere, that's going to be painful. So that's an amazing thing for a Buddha, the sort of, in a way, the pinnacle of what it is to be human is still saying, if there's no one to revere, then that's going to be painful. The Buddhist word for this reverence it's a beautiful word. It's garava. It means reverence. So if there's no one to extend this garava to, that's going to be painful. So reverence is important even for a Buddha. A sense of, it's like a sense of wonder. One teacher, Ratnaguna, who I greatly respect, recently said that he's been thinking of enlightenment as a continual state of wonder. So it's like a continual state of reverence. And the Buddha, upon realizing that there's no human being who's achieved more or higher than a Buddha, reveres the Dharma itself, reveres truth itself, if you like, reveres the thing about the universe that means that Buddhas can arise in the universe. I didn't put that very poetically, did I? The Buddha reveres just the fact that there can be Buddhas, that we live in a universe wherein Buddhas can arise. The Buddha feels wonder towards that fact. The Buddha reveres that fact. So this is very important for us too. If we want to live a fully human life, then reverence is important. Having people we can look up to is important. It's not entirely fashionable these days to talk in these terms, but I've come to realize more and more deeply its importance. And it is, I think, the same thing as understanding that life has constant creativity. If life is constant creativity, then there must be something to move towards. And hopefully, there are some people that have moved towards it a bit more than us. I hope they have. Terrible thought that there wouldn't be, wouldn't it? Then we'd just be left with ourselves, wouldn't we? So there'll be people that sort of embody that, and they're people we can look up to. So I wanted to bring in this aspect of Garava, which is sort of part and parcel of the Enlightenment experience. If we cultivate it, what we'll find, and you can test this out for yourself, if we cultivate this sense of Garava, this looking up, reverence even, we'll start to feel as if we're being drawn on in our spiritual lives. And I'm using that as if advisedly, because I'm speaking poetically, but although I'm speaking poetically, no less truly, I believe, that we'll start to feel as if we're being drawn on by well, I don't want to say by what. There's no thing that's drawing us on. At the same time, we'll feel as if we've been drawn on, or we'll feel as if we're partaking in a sort of current, and all we have to do is cooperate with that current of growth. That's what we'll feel. So really, if I was to sum up what I'm trying to talk about tonight, is sort of looking out and looking up. So that's what the Buddha did. He looked out to all beings, and that's what we call the Buddha's compassion, that looking out with love. And he looked up to something he could revere. So if we want to live a fully human life and want to move more towards enlightenment like the Buddha, we can do that by, well, imagining greatly, imagining other people, their joys, their sorrows, allowing our heart to be moved by them, and by keeping looking up and allowing ourselves to be open to wonder, to receptive to wonder, and to people who embody that something higher. So I'm going to pause there. And what we're going to do is we're going to have about 20 minutes or so of hopefully questions and hopefully responses. So hopefully you're going to ask some questions. Hopefully I'm going to think of something to say in response. And Chris or Sarah will let me know what you've been saying. And then we'll end with another meditation, finishing at 9 o'clock. So do write your questions in the chat box. Especially I want to encourage you, if you're new or relatively new, don't be shy to write a question. There's no question that's the wrong sort of question, as it were. So don't be shy. It actually is usually particularly enjoyable to have questions from people who are here for the first time or the first few times. So, Sarah?
Yeah. So here's a question, and I think it refers to Brahma Subhadramati that
Yeah.
we were talking about before. How should we understand the deities that appear in the Buddhist story? So Isan is asking that. Are they aspects of his own mind and consciousness?
How should we understand the deities that appear in the Buddhist story? Are the aspects of the Buddha's own mind and consciousness? Well, maybe the first thing to say is the deities are the gods and goddesses are sort of with a small g, as it were. They're not gods, not godlike in the sort of theistic religions. Maybe a bit like angels, perhaps from Western myth. So, well, they could be understood as either actually existing forces in the universe, or sort of upsurges of our own mind and consciousness. It's quite mysterious, and in the end, neither is completely true or completely untrue. Or you could say both are as true and as untrue as the other. And that's because at Enlightenment, that breaks down anyway. The distinction between an in here and an out there is broken down at Enlightenment. If you have to choose between the Buddhist deities and even the gods and goddesses as existing in here or out there, as it were, interestingly enough, Bhante has said, if you have to choose out there, as it were, because if we think everything's just an aspect of ourselves, we make it too small. So hold both provisionally, whether they're in here or out there, because they are just provisional ideas. But if you have to choose, why not just imagine them as out there? Why not imagine that a God did speak to the Buddha in the story? Why not imagine that there's forces that are drawing us on? Yeah. And it kind of gives us a bigger perspective in life, as long as we don't take it literally and sort of solidify the out there and sort of reify it. It's in a sense, it's both a mistake to think of out there and in here, but it's a better mistake to think of them out there. So I hope that's responded in some way. Another question?
Yeah.
Good.
So Robert's asking, as enlightenment can't be described in words but has to be experienced, is there a way for a person to know if they have experienced enlightenment or something else?
Okay. So this is a question from Robert. Hi, Robert. How do you know if you're enlightened? So that's a very interesting question, isn't it? Probably if you have to ask the question, you're not. I hate to say it, but probably if you have to ask the question, you're not. Partly because you probably wouldn't bother to ask the question as you were, if you were. And if there's any doubt, you probably wouldn't be. But I think it's an interesting question, because the question is, maybe we could bring it down a few notches, as it were, from enlightenment and think, well, how do you know if you've made any spiritual progress or not? And does it matter to ask yourself the question? And more, I tend to think that you probably only know in retrospect. The time, you can't really be sure because you don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. More and more, I've got more and more cautious of thinking I've made any sort of progress in anything. Because, the minute you say anything, the minute you say, gosh, I think I'm getting a bit better with my tendency to irritation, you're doomed for a fall, aren't you? The very next minute you kind of go and fall out with somebody. But what I might say is one might look back over years, or maybe your friends might reflect back and say, you might look back and say, gosh, I kind of, gosh, I haven't really experienced any doubt for like ages now. God, I can't remember the last time I felt doubt in the Dharma. So you might look back and sort of see that. Sometimes I think it's a little bit like when you stop smoking. When can you say you've stopped? You can't just stub a cigarette out and say, okay, that's me stopped now. It has to have a bit of the test of time. And then, there's different phases, aren't there? You've stubbed your last cigarette out. Actually, do people smoke anymore? Some do, don't they? It used to be quite a thing in my day. Polly's like rolling her eyes in horror. I don't think smoking is such a thing now, but say cigarettes, you stubbed your last cigarette out and but then you still like the smell of other people's, so you still, get a whiff of some of this. But then eventually you realize, God, I don't even want one anymore. And God, it's been actually 5 years since I've wanted one. I think I really now can say I'm a non-smoker safely. So I think I can say that about myself. But I certainly couldn't say that when I stubbed my last cigarette out, even though now I can look back and think, oh, that really was my last cigarette. So I think it's a bit like that we'll know in retrospect, or maybe other people will know. It's said that to know that if someone else has got insight, you have to spend a long time with them, and you have to see them through every circumstance, through thick and thin, and see how they respond over many years. And if they can be in a positive mental state through everything, all the ups and downs and joys and sorrows of life over many years, you might think, maybe they're, maybe there is some insight there. Yeah. So quite a big, I'm aware I've answered that at length, but there's quite a lot in that. So thanks for the question, Robert. Yeah. Yeah, another one?
Yeah, so this might also be another big question. So could you talk about the Buddha's desire to teach if he's free from desire?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So the Buddha's desire to teach if he's free from desire. So that is very good question. So let me think how to answer that. So let's just try and think about how, if I had, if we were in the class, I'd probably draw something on the flip chart at this moment to try and describe this. So I wonder if the best way of thinking of it is, well, that is true. The Buddha by definition is free of all personal desire. A Buddha can't be said to want anything, certainly not anything for themselves. So that's really good to, in a way, to draw that out. That is the definition of an enlightened being. So one way of saying it is that's why I think it's helpful to think of this kind of force or current in the universe, as it were, and it's a force and current of growth, yeah? So you could say that at enlightenment, one's will is completely blended with that will to enlightenment. So it's no longer a personal will, but it's not that there's nothing. It's that you're completely aligned with with the will to growth, with the will to enlightenment, and you are simply cooperating with that. So at enlightenment, I imagine you'd feel something like sort of a force moving you. So you wouldn't be moving it, it would be moving you. And your job, as it were, would be to allow yourself to be moved by that. And I think it's analogous on our level of what we might call the muse and the artistic process. If you've engaged in any sort of arts, trying to write a poem or paint a picture, every now and then you just kind of, I was going to say get lucky, but you've put the work in, but it's as if something that's not you, that's sort of greater than you, sort of works through you, and you just have to let it. So your job is just not to get in the way of that. You might feel it in the artistic process. You might feel it in communication. That's sometimes where I feel it, like especially if I've got a difficult conversation coming up and I'm a bit nervous about it. I usually sit before my shrine for a few moments before that. And in a way, sort of ask for help from the Buddhas. And then sometimes I feel like I'm just blessed and the right words come into my mouth at the right time. And I think, gosh, did I just say that? It just comes out so right. Obviously, it is me who said it, but it feels like something more comes in. So I think it's a bit analogous to that. That will then becomes a matter of cooperating with the will to enlightenment, of allowing that will to enlightenment to move through one. Yeah. So big question, important question though. Yeah.
Some questions about the metta.
Yes.
Yeah. So if one practices metta in the morning but later gets frustrated or angered, does this make the practice worthless as not being able to always behave as one would wish?
Does this make the practice worthless? Okay, so this is a question about the metta bhavana, the practice of developing loving kindness. And who's asked this question? B. Hi, B. So the question is, so this is a meditation practice many of you will be familiar with. And so B saying, if you practice it in the morning and then later on find yourself irritable or find yourself in not such a good state, does that make the practice worthless? Well, I hope not, because I experience that all the time, B, and others. So that's what. So I think there's quite a lot in that. So one thing is practice will have an effect on us, but it won't transform us overnight, as it were. It's like sometimes I think it's like a huge ship, our whole psyche is like a huge ship, like the Titanic or something. And it's on this course, and we're just, with our meditation, just trying to turn the course of that ship. Infinitesimally every day we'll do that. So that's one way of responding to the question, that changes won't happen overnight. But I think an even deeper way perhaps is that it isn't so linear, We can't just measure each single meditation by how we feel within that meditation or how we feel for the rest of that day. It's much more subtle and cumulative than that. If you're to come to me and say, oh, I've been practicing the metta bhavana for 10 years and I don't feel even a tiny bit kinder, then I might kind of think, well, let's look at how you're practicing it. You have to practice it for a long time, allow it to have a cumulative effect, and don't be too quick to judge it on how you feel that day, because it doesn't work quite like that. Sometimes it can strangely feel as if, and again, I'm using that as if advisedly, as if you've kind of gone a bit backwards. But I think it's not necessarily that's the case. I think as we practice and develop more of a reservoir of positivity, all the work still to be done can be drawn up. So all those unconscious irritable forces and so on could be drawn up. So who knows, it might actually be might be as a result of your metta bhavana that you feel this new irritation that's now new material to work with. So yeah, don't be too quick to judge, and keep practicing. And if you've been practicing for a while, what I'd suggest is find yourself a meditation buddy, maybe someone in the Sangha if you come to the Buddhist center, or certainly when, well, usually I'd say go on retreat. We can't quite do that at the moment, but, try and get yourself in a situation where you can talk a bit about your meditation regularly, and that will really help as well. Okay, yeah.
Okay, a couple more meditation questions.
Good.
So, Stephen's asking about the suffering of oneself and other people. How do you turn towards it and not try and keep it away?
Okay, so how do you turn towards suffering and not try and keep it away? Your own suffering and other people. It's a very, very good question. And in a way, this is the whole purpose of meditation, especially the metta bhavana, to learn how to engage creatively with suffering. And that's an art. It can be tempting to just want to keep it at bay, not to look. We can feel like we'll be overwhelmed if we look at the suffering of other people. We can feel like we'll be overwhelmed by our own suffering. And again, I'd say the metta bhavana is a great, it's a great practice for working with this. I really like this image of you're trying to create a reservoir of positivity. So you're trying to become a bigger person. So really, like always start with reflecting on the positive, on gratitude. If you fear that you're going to be overwhelmed by suffering, that is, reflect on gratitude, reflect on things that have moved you, so that you're creating a sort of reservoir, a well of positivity. And then you find that you will be able to look at suffering if you remember to just see if you can do that directly. What I'm trying to say is that often it can be the fear of looking at suffering that's the barrier. If you try and kind of let go of the fear, then what we usually find, what I've always found is it's kind of okay. It's kind of okay. It might be very sad. You might feel a great deal of sadness at your own or other suffering. But it's sort of strangely okay. You're more capable than perhaps you thought you were. It's often the fear of suffering that's the thing that makes us shy away. So it's like developing confidence just by practicing that, by practicing not turning away from it, just feeling, well, what does it feel like? Oh, it feels sad. That's okay. It's okay to feel sad. You can bear it and you can bear with it. So it's having that confidence as well. Yeah. Hope that's helpful. Mm-hmm.
Okay. A practical question about the metta bhavana.
Yeah.
Well, actually about both meditations. So if you're doing unguided meditation, how to complete stages in a limited time?
Okay. So this is very good because it sounds like who's asking this question?
I'm not quite sure the name.
Okay, so someone, whoever you are, sounds very good. That sounds like because you're asking about unguided meditation. So it sounds like that you're thinking of taking up this practice and making it your own. So the tradition, we did 3 stages of the metta bhavana this evening, but it comes in 5 stages. So how do you know how long to give each stage? I would say, hope this doesn't sound too simple. I would just say, take how long you've got. If you've got 20 minutes, do 4 minutes a stage. I would try and divide it quite evenly. some people might argue with me about this. Some people think, oh, go with your intuition and sort of go with the flow, and when it feels like time for the next stage, do that. There is something to be said for that, which is, it means that you can just be fluid and responsive. There's also something to be said against that, which is we can go with our own bias and just spend all our time on the friend stage and forget about the person who's neutral or who's difficult. So especially in the beginning, I just look at the time you've got and just evenly divide the time. And you can just use an old-fashioned clock like I've got here, just an old-fashioned clock. Just glance at it every few minutes, or you can set a timer on your phone or whatever. But I think when you're just beginning, stick to the stages as given, and then in time, you'll be able to make the practice more your own. So yeah, good. Any other questions?
Yeah, but new question here so this is about the lockdown.
Okay.
Someone here, Mark, is asking, he's finding himself being judgmental of friends who are suffering from the lockdown, but are breaking social distancing.
Okay. So this is a question about being judgmental of other people. Yeah, very, very easy to be judgmental, self-righteous. We'll always find a way of doing that. So really good that you're flagging this up for yourself as something to work with. In a way, I guess, well, the sort of blunt, the blunt answer to this is any sort of judgmentalism and righteousness is a form of ill will. So we do want to transform it. No matter what they're doing, no matter what kind of scoundrels the other people are being, ill will is our responsibility. A Buddha, for example, no matter how unskillful other people were being, would only feel compassion. So if we're feeling ill will, we have to do something to transform that, even if we have to sort out the practicalities as well. That's separate. So self-righteousness, judgmentalism is a form of ill will. Now, I think personally, it's too big a jump to go from ill will straight to love. Obviously, love is the opposite of ill will. I think the intermediary is patience, yeah? So I think if you're finding yourself being judgmental, really good that you want to work with that, is trying to cultivate patience with yourself, but also patience with that other person. Okay, they're breaking the rules. They may even, be causing danger to people by doing that. But trying to cultivating patience for them means trying to greatly imagine, as Shelley said, what's going on for them, what's their state of mind, what are they trying to work with. So try and cultivate patience for yourself and for the other person. That's an intermediary to metta, to love. And that means because sometimes people are doing something that you think, well, gosh, I'm going to have a conversation with that person. But much, much better to do that on a basis of patience and even love than to do it when you're in the midst of righteous indignation and blame, judgmentalism. So yeah, really good that you want to transform that. And again, the Metta Bhavana is the tool to do that. But I'd say think of patience first before going straight to metta. The Buddhist word for patience is kshanti. And Bhante said it's the most beautiful word in the entire Buddhist language. So it's a very, very positive quality, this quality of kshanti. So I think maybe one more question or one or two.
Yeah, so I think this follows on. Is pity the same as compassion?
Okay, yeah.
There's more to the question.
Oh, yeah.
If I find that people are acting badly and that I have difficulty with, I end up pitying them.
Okay.
But is this wrong?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. Is pity the same as compassion? And usually it's said no. Well, pity can mean different things in a way, but there's a Buddhist term that makes it quite clear that's called sentimental pity. And this is what's called a near enemy of compassion. Actually, this is quite good because it allows me to talk about the near enemy. So thanks for the question. So obviously the opposite of compassion is hatred, or cruelty, actually. The opposite of compassion is cruelty. That in Buddhism is called the far enemy, because it's very, very far away. It's the direct opposite. Whereas there's terms called the near enemy of compassion. And this notion of a near enemy is very, very good, and very, very subtle. And the near enemies of any quality are qualities that masquerade as the quality. And I think perhaps the questioner is already picking up that this might be going on. So the near enemies of compassion, there's two classically, are horrified anxiety and sentimental pity. And horrified anxiety is when we get into, oh my God, I can't cope with this. It's all too much. I just can't look at it. Yeah. Guilt is an aspect of horrified anxiety as well. And in the questions on previous days, I've noticed quite a few people suffer from guilt because they're well and other people aren't. That's a form of horrified anxiety. And it's a near enemy to compassion, and it gets in the way of compassion. So it's good to spot it, and sometimes even just spotting it and naming it can help us to let it go. And the other near enemy is sentimental pity. And I think the kind of characteristic of pity is when you put yourself slightly above the people. So a caricature of it would be, a sort of sentimental, or look at those poor people, they don't know any better type of thing. It's a sort of bit of a slushy sort of feeling. It's not really seeing, in a way, it's not really seeing the humanity of those people and the potential in them for growth and transformation. So if it's got a tinge of sentimentality about it, if it's got a tinge of, oh, I'm a bit above them, then watch out for that. Sometimes, don't give yourself a hard time about that, but just go, oh, I've fallen into the near enemy. And what to do is come back to metta, come back to just sort of straightforward metta, loving kindness, and then allow compassion to grow out of that. Compassion grows out of metta, out of just straightforward loving awareness of another person. In a certain sense, don't try to be compassionate. The Buddha didn't try to be compassionate. It was just second nature for the Buddha to respond to other people and help them to grow. We experience it as compassion, but for the Buddha, it's just a natural way of being, born of wisdom and born of metta. So if we just practice loving kindness, then compassion will look after itself. So yeah, another very, very good and useful question. Okay, so I think I'm not going to get to all the questions. So I think we're going to wind up the questions here. Of course, you can tune in again tomorrow night, and there'll be more teaching and more chance for questions. Maitreya Bandha is teaching tomorrow night, so do tune in tomorrow, same time, same place, as it were. So what we're going to do now is we'll just have a short meditation, then I'll have a few concluding words, and then that will be the end of the evening. So let's set ourselves up for meditation now. We'll dim the lights here. So just once again, getting comfortable. Good. Yeah, we're just dimming our screen so you can dim yours as well. Again, sometimes nice to just take a few deeper breaths, closing your eyes. Once again, really feeling your weight dropping down into your chair, into the floor. Softening the face. Softening the hands. And in this meditation, all we're going to do is just keep softening. So using awareness itself just to comb through the whole body, sort of untangling the knots of the body. Awareness just stretching out through the whole body. Just anchoring ourselves by lightly focusing on the breath, but keeping a very broad awareness. Keep softening the hands. And if you discover yourself in a distraction, you notice a corresponding physical tightening. So just relax that again, soften that again. Soften around the eyes. If you can notice more and more subtle layers of gripping. Deeper and deeper inside, as it were. And just see if you can soften, soften, soften. Letting the breath be your anchor. Body like a mountain. Heart like the ocean. Mind like the clear blue sky. Okay, good. Good. That was lovely. I really did feel like I was meditating with all of you there. I really felt like I could feel an atmosphere of many people meditating together. So we're nearly at the end of the evening now. Just finally, as usual, I just want to say a little bit about the culture that we're trying to create here at the Buddhist Center and invite you to join in with that culture. Since its very beginning, this Buddhist Center has tried to do something radically different than the culture it found itself within. So in our society in today's age, we find ourselves in a culture that's mainly a culture of exchange. You pay for things and you get things and so on. And that's fine up to a point. But we wanted to create something that goes way, way beyond that, and wanted to create a community based in generosity. And so we, as much as possible, try and offer things at the center without any charge. All the teachers and all the team here, well, actually, it's just an expression of our practice. I used to say we were volunteers, but even that isn't quite right. It's more like this is just what I want to do. I couldn't really be a Buddhist without doing this. It's just part of my life as a Buddhist to want to share as best I can the teachings of the Buddha. It's actually what brings me the greatest fulfillment. And yeah, so that's the culture we're trying to create. And yeah, if you'd like to join in with us, we invite you to give us a donation now. As I say, there's no charge for the class. At the same time, we do need some money to keep it all going and to keep us being able to reach out to all of you. And that's more the case than ever now, because we've had to close the doors of our centre, our retreat centre, and so on. So if you'd like to join in with our culture, if you'd like to make a donation, the link's below, and I think we're just going to post it in the chat box as well. And if you could give something monthly, that would be great. It would just really help us to a sort of plan. Nobody can really plan at this time, can they? But it would help us at least to make some sort of plans. But anything at all you could give, that would be most welcome. And then, yeah, just remains to say, lovely to spend the evening with you. Tune in again tomorrow for Maitreya Bandhu talking about what the Buddha first taught. Come to Buddha Day and book on our retreat. And oh yeah, tell all your friends and family about our retreat as well. So we just have, it'd be great just to have thousands and thousands of people meditating on that retreat, which starts on the 17th of May. So see you soon. Thank you.